Just to kick this off, thank you for coming here. And my name is Yinal Özkan. I'm one of the solutions architects from New York office. And today we will be presenting a joint session with Harry-Dewedoff from NASDAQ OMX. He's a senior director of global storage solutions. Can you introduce?
Yep. Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. As Yinal said, I'm with NASDAQ OMX. I head up the global storage administration group for the company, amongst other roles. So we're here to tell you a little bit about how we and Amazon have partnered together with some of the solutions we've done over the past 18 months.
All right. Before we go forward, let's talk about what we will cover today, so that you make sure at the end we hit our goals or not. So initially, we will begin with what we see in the enterprise storage and the cloud integration. That's our understanding. What we see, how we are classifying the solutions, how we are looking at this, storage integration space. What are the high-level architectural approaches? What we think about it, and then it will be about actually we switch a little bit because Harry needs to catch his plane. So we will talk about what NASDAQ thinks and what they did and what they are doing at the moment, because there are a lot of activities going on. We are working together on many different projects, and then we will cover the options. We classified, we looked at the marketplace. We said, what are your main decision paths? Option 1, I can do these kind of solutions. Option 2, 3, 4, we will cover some options. And we will actually dig a little bit more, what are the pros and cons? Because it's not like we can tell you, this is the best option ever, go with this way, because every shop is different, every place is different. So we will try to give you the design considerations, the best practice, what we are hearing from our customers, what we are hearing actually from NASDAQ. They are providing great feedback. And at the end, we have also a proof of concept going on for a very interesting workload for storage integration. So we will also, not only it's just about the technology or the architecture, the classical challenges running a POC with the storage teams and integrating your data center. We will also cover that one. So going forward, what this session is not about. So if you are here to hear about the vendor features, or technology-specific configurations, this session is not about a specific technology or a specific. We will name many vendors, many solutions, but the thing is, that's not the main thing. We will provide them as examples of certain things. We have a lot of great partners in the storage space, and there are a lot of ISVs. SIs working on storage technologies, but our goal is to give you pure information, like what is out there, what can you do as a storage professional, what can you do on AWS. This session is not about how you do storage in the cloud. I mean, yes, this is AWS, and we are on the reInvent conference. Well, this is a little bit different session. Our target is that we are talking about your storage on your co-location, on your data center, on-premise. How you tier these data sets to AWS. This is slightly different. We are not talking about your in-the-cloud storage. We are talking about on-premise storage, your current workloads that you are working in your data center. That's what we will be talking about, just to make it very clear. Because we noticed that this is a little bit different than building a storage in the cloud, because yes, we provide many different storage options, but that's not it about. So, and this is not about backing up your PC or your last Grand Canyon pictures. This is not a retail session either. This is an enterprise session. We will talk about people who deal with large amounts of data with enterprise class systems. Working in a big storage operation like Harry's group, working on with the whole SAN, NAS, the daily challenges, HA performance, all those things. So this is an enterprise session. This is not like an end user retail technology session. All right. So I hope we clear that. So we will start with our view, as I mentioned before, what we think about this, what we think about this space, and Then we actually switch section 2 and 3. We will go with the section 3, which is about what NASDAQ is doing today. They do so many different things. We will touch a little bit different areas. Yeah. And then we will go back to section 2. What are the architectural options and what we have discussed with NASDAQ, how they map to the options that we mentioned. We will also cover about the day-to-day challenges, our conversations. It's interesting. And then, we will be evaluating a sample workload and the challenges that we face operationally, architecturally, how we are handling those things. All right. Just before we go further, just a short question. How many of you consider yourself a storage professional? Okay. That's good. Because we noticed that also when we are talking all cloud, AWS, those kind of things, specialization is a great team. I mean, I noticed that when we were having long conversations with NASDAQ, like when you are talking to developers, that's one conversation. When you are talking to the storage team, it's a whole different conversation. So,
different mindsets for sure, yeah.
He corrected me several times. So, so let's start with the section 1. You're all here, and let's go with the content. So this is standard. What's out there on AWS? Okay, you are probably familiar with this. There are many different ways of how you can store data on AWS. Your data can be stored on S3. It's an object-based storage system. We have Glacier. It's a very interesting storage system. It's actually we are targeting your cold archive storage. We have Elastic Block Storage, which you attach to your servers in the cloud. It's a block storage network attached persistent storage system. And we have a gateway. We will cover a little bit more, like what does this gateway mean and how does this gateway integrates with your workloads. So that's in the storage. And in addition to all these, you can consider all the databases, like we have a key value pair, Dynamo, all the RDS solutions. You can consider also all those as storage solutions because you literally store data on those systems. So there are plenty of things going on the AWS, plenty of solutions, exciting things are happening. But what does it mean for the data you are storing on your on-premise? You still have a lot of data there. Of course, I wouldn't complain if you move everything over. But the thing is, it's not the case. It's going slowly. It's a process. So we will discuss more about what's going on the enterprise data centers, colos, those places. Okay? So just very short, I won't take too much time on these things. Like S3, first of all, because I will mention this later, just to be very clear. S3 is a very durable storage option. S3 stores objects in a distributed fashion. We use very nice algorithms to make sure that your data stays safe. So when your data is on S3, it's in a good place. It's distributed across many different physical locations. It's good. So, and actually, that's the statistics. That's how you calculate, 11 nines. So these are the things we hear from our customers, okay? These are the challenges we are hearing. I mean, how many times we heard these things? It's interesting. Like, we go to a customer, we talk about these things. Like, so too much data, first of all. Like, it's not like the old times. Like, people are storing so many different things. I noticed that yesterday we released CloudTrail, like our log format, like it's a long file. It should be like, I remember the old syslog messages, like, so it's data is getting more and more. And storage space is, I mean, as much as we want, it's not a very exciting space. It's not like something everybody deploys a new technology every year, right? It's like, but the requirements are increasing. So, traditional technologies and the process don't match this new massive data storage requirements. That's a challenge. And prediction is it's a science, who can predict how much storage you need this year, next year, the year after. I mean, actually, that's a big capacity planning thing. And, storage needs and, like secondary replication is a big issue, like how many store your backups, all those kind of things. So, and SAN systems are getting expensive, of course, depending on your budget, how you are seeing what expensive means for you. But regardless of which direction you're looking at, it's not cheap. Same for NAS. And you have archive requirements. Many people think storage is a disk. Okay, I have this file, and as a business user, I say, okay, I have my file, I copy this file to my file share, and I'm all set. Well, this data has many different views. As if you're in the storage business, you have to take a backup, you have an archive, you have a DR, you have so many different things. It goes to a tape, it goes to Iron Mountain, it goes to many different places. How many copies? It gets really, and supporting that operation gets a challenge. Yesterday, Harry and I were talking, like, forget about inventing new things, building new storage solutions, which, I mean, those teams are very capable of doing so. Just running this thing is a big challenge. Like, imagine you built this thing, running this storage operation is a very tough thing today. And how many of you restore tape? It's like a lottery, You say, okay, will I see my data back? It's sometimes very, very interesting. So, and then people get frustrated. Okay, I will get your data, but when I have time, because we will be busy, we won't have time. It takes, I need to make a call to my tape provider, all those kind of things. It's taking time. So these are what we are hearing, just to set what we are hearing. Okay, we will cover more what we are doing to address these challenges. Okay, this is how we see it. Have you seen this slide before? This is something we use generically. So this is the storage place today. Okay, so you have block storage, file storage, archive, backup, tape, replication, and offsite storage. This is what's happening. This is how the storage space is getting in the enterprise. And these are all different things. Don't take it as a single solution. I wish it was. That's my initial thing was, oh, we do storage, it's easy. It's not that easy the way enterprise works. Hopefully it will get more easy in the future. That's our target, but not today. So most of the solutions that we will discuss today are actually working this way. You still have these systems. We don't expect you to change how you do business. Okay? We know you have applications, you have infrastructure working in a single way. Of course, we are still telling you, if you build your applications this way, I work with a big financial services company. They have 6,000 applications. And, and it will be great for me if I say, make sure your applications can write and read from S3, all your problems are gone. Well, it's not that easy to say. We understand it's taking time. It's not that. So what we are doing is we are actually emulating. So we are putting something in between. That you will repeat this theme for a while. And then that thing in between, the gateway actually talks to the, or the software talks to the cloud, and the enterprise applications that need storage work as is, okay? And actually, it becomes something like this, So you have all those systems tiering their data. You still use your existing system. That's our goal. We don't want you to change things dramatically, especially, many people in this conference are talking about making massive investments in the infrastructure and the technology. Well, without making infrastructure, we were discussing how we can plan for next year or those kind of things. We understand you will still need more storage, but don't rip it off. It will be great if I was in the hardware, because I would say, oh, rip them off, get the new one. Those are better, But the thing is, it's not the case. The case is that how we tier these storage workloads to AWS or any other cloud service provider. This is not just about AWS, okay? So actually, it becomes something like this. You have some systems, and then everything works, and you are actually moving your workloads between S3, and then the other systems actually talk back to S3. I keep referencing to S3 because that becomes where your data is safe, and then the Glacier is like for long-term storage. Because in a region, we make sure that we are trying to do everything that we can so that your data is safe. So, okay, I'm talking about something. Does it really good? Does it really matter? At the end of the day, why we are hearing these things? First of all, there are financial benefits, Let's be very open. If there is no benefit in this, and if you'll be spending more, if you'll be, having more CapEx budgets, more larger things, that doesn't get way more meaningful, okay? The second thing is meter everything. Metering is very important. I mean, Harry, you're working with third party, like in the internal businesses. Like, how is it like? Can you meter them? Can you, so you're charging back to other things? Yeah.
Yeah, we do and we can, or we do. Absolutely that. So our investment back is something through the service catalog, so we can track, customer usage by gigabyte, how much data they're backing up, how much online storage they're using, what tier they're using, and give it back. So it's those business units or responsible business units that come to us and say, hey, my budget is high, and you're a big part of that. Well, you're giving me all this data, you have to charge it back. So what can you do? Hence our view into AWS and the need to lower costs while still maintaining the integrity and the performance.
Yeah. So exactly, that's what we are hearing. I mean, it's feedback. We want to see everything that every organization is using. That you can meter data. You don't need to plan about how much storage you need, because the storage is like, if you don't have a limit on storage, literally, think about this. And of course, the prices are very interesting. The only variable that you put in your calculations is that the prices will go down. That's a really nice thing to know. It's not up, it's going down. Operationally, it's all different. Many people skip this operational piece. I mean, I'm like that. I'm coming from the engineering background. I deal into the configuration, functionality, this thing, this feature, how many bells and whistles, how many features are there. It's not the discussion. I mean, most of the time, yesterday here was saying, is going to the operations. Running this thing is tough. And you have to calculate how much time and effort you are putting. I mean, in this conference, I heard from in yesterday's keynote session as well, is like, how much effort are you putting into run things instead of inventing and building nice, great storage solutions? It's very interesting.
Sure.
We are very, your team, I met with the team, it's like great people there, but you're busy.
Yeah, very operational.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it's good to tell your business, oh, we won't handle that workload. You can say, okay, as long as the pricing is right, operation is right, we will take whatever data you send to us. It's good to say, It will help business eventually. I mean, everybody's working with bigger, larger data sets. It will help you. All right, so in terms of tiering, we have even tiering in AWS. So S3, where your data is going to S3, maybe you will have other disk systems. And from S3, this is like some color thing, but the thing is, from S3, you can also tier your data sets to Glacier as well. So depending on how often you're trying to use, you can also do the tiering, in your data center. Okay, so we will switch to NASDAQ case, and then, we will go back to this section too about the options, what is out there, okay? Give me a second, let me switch the slides. NASDAQ OMX, okay.
Go down to,
Go up. Okay. Section 3, yeah, that's where it starts. So it's a ThinkCloud. I want to do this. All right, this is the starting at 11:30. Okay, so you should be able to see the section 3. All right. So history, I don't recall exactly, like probably sometime last year, we met with NASDAQ teams. They had a lot of different ideas about how they can leverage. They already did the math. It wasn't like we were talking about these pricing things and how much they can save. They knew everything inside out. They ran all the numbers. They knew what they were doing. They did their due diligence. They said, you know what? We will store this data set. We have a massive data storage thing. We will store this data on AWS. That's what they said. They were very clear. They knew what they were doing. And so we had so many interesting projects. And that's how it started. And once they did their initial use case, then they started to do other things. So this is ThinCloud yesterday. Who knows about the ThinCloud solution? Okay, just a few. So what happened was one of the things that NASDAQ had to go through was, they had to move trade records. This is regulatory data, regulatory compliance data. This is subject to many different regulations. They had to store these data sets. So this is the option that we will say you can move your data on your own. Because if you have engineers like NASDAQ, you can say, okay, you know what? I can write this thing down. I can encrypt my data, move my data sets out. I can actually do this. You can actually, you don't need a lot of third parties or something. You can do this yourself. This is not rocket science. The thing is, like, if you have, like, is Nate in this room? So, like, if you have developers like, NASDAQ, then you can write these things. Basically, it's a very simple solution. They take the trade records from their customers. They encrypt the hell out of every file. They create their own index and move to S3. Well, this is the solution. It's not very, of course, there are a gazillion things, but this is at the very high level what they are doing. And when they need these records back from their own databases, they read the keys, they need the encryption things, and they run Hadoop clusters and make sure that they can read and pull these data sets back. They keep every single file encrypted with a different key, rotating keys. It's really nice, secure, it's really nice. The data is coming to the inbox, it's processed, records are into the chunks are encrypted. They use nice encryption, they use HSMs. HSM in the storage conversation can be a little bit tricky. HSM, what it means, hardware security modules. And that's basically how it works. And these are some basic things. I will not, again, this is not like a deep level technology conversation, but this is basically how it works. They created meta files, and so that's how they track every file. They do encryption, and they read this file, and then that's how they can read. And the nice thing is that reading these files, imagine you have like a petabyte of files just for one customer, and you are looking for one trade record from one certain trader. Who did indexing in the past? If you want to index this 1 petabyte of files, that will be a crazy difficult task for you. How do you find a file among a petabyte of file? It's a needle in the haystack, right? So if you want to keep the infrastructure for this, you need a small Google in your data center. So what they did was very creative. They are actually running a Hadoop cluster. Every time you're looking for this, they spin this dynamic cluster. Cluster comes up, it finds the file, terminates everything. They just pay for the hour, everything is done. So it's a very interesting creative solution. This is how it started, but this is not what we will talk about. This is just one example of how you address storage workloads, okay? We will talk more about the enterprise cases, how it works and, what you can do tomorrow, actually, when you go back. Because, again, this conference is not about talking about features or products. This is more about when you go back, what kind of options you have, what you get out of this conference. We really want you to take home something. And so here I switched to Harry because when we were doing the ThinCloud project, we met with the real NASDAQ OMX storage team. So that's where we met Harry. So
okay, thank you. Now that was quite a good job in giving the data that you had there. There's a lot there. Got a lot of good content. Just back to ThinCloud a second. It's all about solving problems, right? Our customers came to us. We're a self-regulated organization. We're the world's largest security exchange by exchanges worldwide. So they came to us and said, we have this issue. We have regulatory issues. We have to keep the data self-protected. We don't want to do it. What can you do for us? One of the things that NASDAQ OMX is known for is not only the securities exchange business, but we have a large technology business. It's our market tech business. In other words, we provide and license software as well as other products. So that is our DNA. It is our culture. So they came to us, and ultimately we recognized to do it at the cost the customer was looking for, we couldn't do it in our brick and mortar. There was just no way we were going to get it done. So we went and sought the help of AWS, and again, that's the story. And this is all public information. Good stuff's out there on the web if you want to see it. Thank you. Okay, great. So infrastructure, In 2012, our management came to us and said, we need to get into the cloud beyond FinCloud. We need to get there. We need to lower cost. We need to find a way to help us move forward, both technically, again, being a technical company, but also to drive costs down, because we recognize that things need to get cheaper in order to be competitive in the market. So given that directive, we looked at it and said, okay, where do we want to start? So we looked at what we can do, and we saw ourselves, all right, where can't we go? So we looked at our tiers and we said, well, tier 1 and tier 2, given performance, reliability, and all those types of things, as it stands right now, we're going to keep that in our brick and mortar. Where we do see the big wins and where the large amounts of data are clearly in the tier 3 or what we call tier 4 or archive spaces. So it was at that point we said, all right, well, between those two options, what makes the most sense? So we looked at both of those and we realized that the tier 3 is online storage. It has a customer component. It has a real-time component to it. The outcome could be unpredictable. It could take longer to get there. So we said, of the two areas, let's go ahead with the backup workload. So what we're calling tier 4, the backup workload, this is the path we took to begin our cloud effort. So latter part of 2012, we started looking at it more closely, and then of course into Q1 of this past year is when we went and implemented it. So again, looking at the selection of backup as the business case, or the first use case, if you will, for us, was greater control of the implementation and the outcome. There wasn't anybody we had to go to and say, are you okay with this? Are you okay with this performance? As long as we met our regulatory requirements of getting data off-site, as long as we have the data protected, as long as we get it back, this is where we're in control of that. So we met those requirements, and of course later on we'll talk a little bit about information security. And again, the other thing too is you can imagine tier 4 and tier 3 or online storage is less risky. All right, it's important, but it's less risky. If you don't meet the performance profile, and then you run into problems of your online storage, it could be a problem. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But then again, this is the path we took. And then again, the backup technology options that were there through AWS fitted very nicely or dovetailed well into the technology we have at NASDAQ OMX. Okay, so this kind of jumps out right into what we're using. But so when we looked at how are we going to get from point A to point B, how are we going to get what we're doing now with our backup, where we have brick and mortar, the traditional model. We have you have the host itself bringing the data into our servers. Ultimately that gets sent to local storage assets, and then replicated across our different data centers for disaster recovery purposes. So again, going back to the directive, what makes sense for us? Well, what makes sense for us is to get rid of those local storage. And we had two options. You have data at rest, and then inflate data, or what we call new data being backed up. So the data at rest had a certain profile, had a certain legacy amount of data to it. And we said, all right, we know what we need to do here. We'll push forward with that. Secondly, in terms of the real time, how are we going to get this through our existing server farm or backup server farm that we're doing today? So we looked through Now's help and people at other folks at AWS. We came down to a short list of vendors who can help us with that. And ultimately through some testing and some support and ultimately doing some proof of concept, because we're very conservative in the sense that although backup data is what it is, we want to make sure that we're protected as a company, and our strategic view is very, very good going forward. So through all those different details and proper planning, we ended up choosing Riverbed, the Whitewater product, amongst the other candidates or other players in there. And that was for a few reasons. You now mentioned that perhaps like a lot of you, we're not very largely staffed. We have very good people, but we have few of them. And in most times that works out. But when it comes to deploying technology, when it comes to moving forward with things that are perhaps unknown, ease of deployment makes it very important to have that. The strong vendor support model. Everything I instill in my team is, you have a problem, call the vendor. Fine, take it on yourself if you can, but ultimately you didn't write the code, you didn't write the hardware, build the hardware, you didn't put the solution together, leverage them. And then so we looked at that and wanted to make sure that we had strong vendor support. Through Riverbed, we felt we did. Good integration and compatibility. Again, looking at our backup solutions that we have, and we had 2, we migrated to 1, we standardized globally recently. Having said that, we want to make sure that we can do that with the technology we had. We found that in this product. A few other more technical things we wanted to look at was online, premise cache repositories. So we want to make sure that the data that we're sending out gets to where it needs to go quickly off the disk of the host itself. Obviously, from a backup point of view, it's protected that way. But get it somewhere where you can write it out and then ultimately push it out at our leisure. We found that to be the case, again, with Riverbed. Inline dedupe and compression. Well, much to AWS's, view is that we want to have less storage out on the AWS. We want to use them, but we don't necessarily want to push everything we have. If we took all our data at rest, and we took all the inline data, we're talking 3 petabytes of data, we'd have to shoulder up and put on AWS. Well, we want to find ways to do that. And one way to do that, a few different ways to do that, obviously, is compression, and of course, data dedupe. Again, with this product, it's inline, it does it for you, it's operationally easy, it's kind of lights out, we don't think about it. Data encryption, of course, is very important to us, as it should be to you. We looked at this and we went through security profiles or security reviews with our information security group. We also noticed that, that the appliance, the data encryption at the appliance is very important. Before it actually leaves the building or before it leaves the host itself or as it gets exiting from the backup solution itself was very important. And then lastly, one of the things we do as an exchange, we list companies. If anybody's been looking at the papers recently, you see Twitter, you see Marriott, you see all these different companies and all these listing exchanges, NYSE being the other, ICE now, list as a part of the business. So, when we look at companies and we look at products, we don't look at them because they're listed, we look at what their features. But we do look at it from a point of view that, if they are a good product and they're a listed company, then it's a fine decision for us. Get us just a quick picture for those who are familiar with technology in terms of backup. The far left you have your data, be it structured or unstructured data. It comes through. Every organization has that. It goes to our, in this case, the media server. And ultimately, it gets staged to our deduplication disk, and then ultimately sent out to AWS. A very simple model, but that's what's beauty about it. There's not a whole lot of complication here. It makes it very easy. Again, if you go back to saying what Yanal said earlier, this idea about operations versus engineering, what I like to call optioneering. This idea of getting your people who are well compensated, very strong people, and do a lot of operation, I think is not a good thing. So if we can get them to do less of this work, worrying about whether something's failing on the disk or whether a VTL is filling up or do I need more storage because there's a big backup, let's not do that any longer. Let's push that out and give the power to the engineers so they can do better things for our organization.
And we will cover the options going back and say how these architectures play with the other options in the future.
Yep, absolutely. So again, if you look at how we're doing it, I kind of alluded to it, but this slide tells you this. So again, no major changes. We walked into this with the understanding that we don't want to change much to our environment. Again, the staffing issues aside, it should be very easily integrated, and we found that with the solution, not only with the appliance itself, the Riverbed appliance that sits between it, but also with AWS. But again, if you look at it, no major changes, well interoperable. Riverbed appliance, it looks like a standard disk pool. So when we looked at it, we simply said, okay, what do we want to do here? We want to take what used to be a local disk pool through the Riverbed. It still looks that way to net backup. So as far as the administration goes, it's all straightforward, easy to do, nothing changes. And then again, the MBU policies itself were simply ordered to make use of the pool. So it was very easy. Point and click, done, good night, and we're good to go. And that's the way we've basically been since Q1 of this year.
We were talking to NASDAQ, we were explaining this how we can do, and at one point I got an email from, oh, we are done, we are already, all our data is already moving there, we deployed it already, so it was very interesting.
Yeah, yep. You could always, you want bigger pipes and you want more of them, but other than that, it's been very easy. So standard security, I think, anytime people are playing in the cloud or anybody in the internet, or even, site to site, you need to make sure you have security. So, we looked at the features here and we looked at AWS and we said to ourselves, all right, what do we get from this in terms of security? Well, what we do get, we're getting the data is encrypted at transit and also at rest. So we know that the data is going to be encrypted. We're not concerned about that. Well, you always have concern, right? You trust but verify, if anybody remembers perestroika, So, Joe, who few people know, he laughs when I say that all the time. But I believe in it, right? You have to. Because, you have the trust, but you also have to verify. So always look over the wall, but make sure, by the time you get looking over the wall, the fact that, you already did your due diligence is there. Again, the keys itself are stored here at the NASDAQ facilities. We took ownership of that. We're making sure that, these things aren't going to get into other people's hands and, and put us at risk. And then lastly is, as with any large organization or an organization that, works in data, information security group needs to look at it. So we spend a lot of time with them. We spend a lot of time with our Riverbed partners, definitely with you now and our Amazon folks, and we signed off on that before we did anything, quite honestly. Before we moved forward and with the first step, we said, here's the architectural review. We put an architectural diagram together. We put an architectural plan together. Before we made one capital purchase, before we took one step forward, we ran it through the group. And then ultimately it came out, got the green light, and we moved forward. And again, I think this is more or less, yeah.
So thank you. So it was like we wanted to be really complex, big project, but what NASDAQ did was, okay, we did our standard evaluation. It looks like our backups are going. So they looked at their options. They chose one vendor, and I'm not saying like in 2 weeks or so, their backups are all moving to AWS. It was very interesting, straightforward, and it wasn't complex. It was a just standard project. They just looked at it. They did it very pragmatically. They did their security analysis, operational analysis. Boom, the whole data was on, AWS. So I will cover more on the integration options, like how you are doing this. Is this like putting a gateway only your option, or what can you do? Okay, we will cover these things going back to section 2. And we are, I don't want to, actually we can talk all day if we will be allowed. This is a long topic, but I know you need to be other places. And very quickly, we will discuss about, the integration options, okay? So this is one way of classifying how you are looking at things. Like, do I need to have a gateway? Do I need to do this? How I'm. The first thing is your software talks to AWS, you're done. Okay? You have a software. This software can write to storage things on AWS. By the way, thanks a lot for Harry for his, he needs to catch his plane. So your software, if your software talks to AWS, you're good. And there are many software, and it keeps increasing. They keep adding more and more software that talks to AWS. So check with your software vendor, talk to your developers, make sure if your software is. Second option is move your files. You heard about FTP? That works. It's not complex. You don't need to make this like a 3-year-long project or something. I understand enterprise is not there. How many of you are still using FTP today? Oh, that's good. Yeah. I mean, we had a discussion like, when will it go away? When will be, there will be no FTP in our lives. Okay, we will cover other options. So software integration, it's quite simple. On your software, make sure it talks to S3 and Glacier. It just works. And your software actually moves those data sets to, AWS. And usually it's a media server. And that media server just writes many of the modern backup software, media servers, most of the backup integrations, they integrate well. And You can use encryption. This is a key thing. I will cover this again and again. What about security? Security is big for me. I don't do, like, for storage, it's different. Enterprise storage is different. You encrypt your data on your premise, on your colo, wherever you assume that you want to do it. You ship the encrypted workloads to AWS. Where do you see the problem? I'm asking you, where do you see the problem? If your keys are in your pocket and your encrypted workloads are on AWS, where do you see the security problem? Again, just ask this question. And this is the repeating theme, and every solution does just ask yourself this question. Where do you see those big, massive security problems? So you can use encryption, dedupe, compression, all those things, so you store less on AWS. You save money. It's pay as you go. And you can check your integration so all your operations work. Basically, this is how it works. I mean, we did this several over and over again. Like, very simple, your backup server talks to AWS, and then, you're all set. It can be a software. It can be something that you do. You have a good developer who can write with the SDKs. We have 6, 7 different SDKs. Or just ask your vendor, look, I like your software, but does it write to AWS? Ask them. It's not a difficult thing. We did this several times. They can do it, even if it's not there already. It's possible. So the second option is file transfer. The bulk upload. Let's say you have 1 petabyte of data already in on your premise, and you want to, actually your daily things, like you actually move 1 terabyte a day. We are talking about 2 different solutions. Because at one point, you need to move 1 petabyte, and then every day you keep adding 1 terabyte. Are they the same solution? They aren't. You need to build completely different engineering infrastructures for those two. So you can move your data. You can move your data with any way you like. You don't need to build different things or something. We have a FedEx option. Literally, you put your disks, you ship them with, of course, not FedEx, any courier you want. We take those disks and, ingest them. It's called the import-export service. But you can use things. Of course, you can use optimized things. We have media companies who are moving big media files, a lot of files. They do parallelization. They do multiple uploads. You can do all these creative solutions. We will cover a few of them. But you can move your data. This is your project. I'm moving X petabyte from here to here. You can move these data sets. It's not difficult. And then, of course, you can encrypt first and then move. Well, I mean, that makes sense. You can compress first and then move. You can dedupe first and then move. No, it's the same story. It's not like, rocket science. And the thing is, this is not the cloud project that we are all doing on the other end. Again, make the differentiation. We are talking about your existing operations. This doesn't require like a 10-month cloud strategy discussions and those kind of things. You have an immediate need to store your data. You want to store your data, and you can store your data. Just move your files. And this is what we did with another operation. They say, oh, we have a very specific, we need to use FIPS keys, FIPS mandated, encryption, so we cannot use those things. I need to do it myself. So this is how you do. Put your old files in a file share, encrypt them, and then move them to your moving server, whatever is running SCP, UDP, TFTP, you name it. It's an encrypted file. If you want to push this through an IPsec tunnel, move it through an IPsec tunnel. Move it from Direct Connect, your MPLS lines. It doesn't matter. Just move this file. And it worked. And this is an integration option. This is like, I apologize. This is not as challenging engineering problem as it sounds. This is a very simple thing. And you can do this. And another option is AWS Gateway. This is interesting. We are moving more in the gateway field, and we will cover also enterprise solutions as well, okay? AWS Gateway is interesting because our customers ask us, look, you're telling nice things, we don't have time. We want more automation, we want to write to a disk. I don't care what you do, we want to write to a disk, They want a disk. So the way they get the disk is that we have a solution for on-premise workloads. It works also in the cloud, but that's not our topic. What you do is, on a hypervisor, it's either Microsoft or VMware, you bring up this as a VM, okay? AWS Storage Gateway is a virtual machine. Runs on your data center, okay? It's quite straightforward. You hit next, 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 next. Suddenly, there's a VM running in your VMware cluster, okay? And then this VM actually presents iSCSI endpoints. That means you can describe this VM as a disk to your servers in your data center. And you can start moving data to a disk. You look like you're writing to a disk. That's a funny disk. That disk actually moves all the data on the back end to S3 or later the Glacier we will talk about. That's basically the service. And it has a lot of optimizations. Technology is great technology. Again, I'm not here to talk about great technology or specifics of the technology. We are talking about the options. In terms of pros and cons, that's what we are talking about, okay? It supports Windows, Red Hat, point-in-time snapshots. You can restore these snapshots in the cloud. You need to encrypt your own, and then you can schedule it. It does the compression, supported everywhere, and then it does manage the bandwidth. And now we have very interesting solutions, which is you can replicate data, or you can actually do it like caching. Caching is very interesting. So on-premise, you have, let's say, a 1 terabyte disk, which is using your SAN, okay? And you can actually display a 32 terabyte disk to your server. What happens? This 32 terabytes is actually going to the S3. You see all your files, but some of them are actually on S3. You don't know. It just caches those things. The recent files, the recent I/O is done with your local SAN, where on the back end, the real 31 of the 32 terabytes, of course, there's compression, everything, is stored on S3. That's the cache volumes. Now we have the VTL support. I will cover this a little bit. So your backup systems just see this as a VTL. So, again, I'm just explaining a little bit. We have like 13, 15 minutes according to timer. So it's basically, long story short, when you build this gateway, it presents itself as a disk. And this disk is a funny disk because it moves all your data to S3 and Glacier. And this is how it works, basically. Your VM actually leverages your local disks. And then, on the back end, it creates volumes in the cloud, and you're managing all the cloud resources. Suddenly, you got a lot of things. VTL gateway. Who is familiar with the VTL concept? Virtual tape library. So you have a software. You write. You think you're writing to a tape library. It's actually, on the back end, again, some funny math is happening. This is just released last week, if I'm correct. So now, your backup software can see AWS Gateway as a VTL endpoint. So that means your backups are actually going to AWS. You don't know even that. Like all you need is a gateway. So it's quite straightforward. This is actually how it works. Basically, your data is going with the virtual tape library to S3, and if you want to do a shelf, virtual tape shelf, it goes into Glacier. Glacier is the cold storage. People know Glacier by its pricing. Like it's a penny a gig a month. So it's a good, storage system. You will like its pricing. But technically, again, your solution is on your data center. You have a VM running. It presents itself as a disk. You write to this disk. It goes away. Again, I will be happy to provide technical details after this session if you have questions about how these things work, how you configure those things. But, let's finish our content first, and we will go there. So basically, it's these are some more details, and there was a question. We will be sharing these presentations after the event, so you will have full access to this session and the contents. So you will be happy to go. We will be happy to share more. Okay. So option 4 is the enterprise things. Enterprise, whatever you do, enterprises say we are different. We do it in a different way. Oh, you present iSCSI. I don't like iSCSI. I heard that. Oh, iSCSI. Can you compare it with Fiber Channel? I like NAS. I want my NAS. So the enterprise, and for a good reason, they have more specific requirements. So the thing is, instead of presenting just iSCSI, you can do some other things. What if this gateway is presenting a file share? CIFS, NFS. These are the common file sharing things. So what if this cloud storage is presented as a CIFS share? That's perfect. So I'm writing to my /sales directory, everybody in the company, And suddenly this data is tiered back down to AWS. Nice. Even other clouds, you know. What if I have a file virtualization solution? I keep writing my file virtualization solution, and there are really good ones in the market. And this file virtualization solution decides based on your policies. If Yinal is writing, always ship it to the slowest place. If the managers are writing, ship it to a different place. You can write these rules. And these file virtualization solutions, we discussed for a very long time. What if you want to use? OK, just ask your file virtualization vendor, oh, by the way, I want one of my file virtualization options to be the AWS, S3, Glacier. I want that. You can do that. So it's happening. There are so many different solutions. And you want to do is like even FC switches. Like we're talking real hardcore storage now. The FC switches, ask your FC storage vendor, when my data is passing through this switch, I want some of the data based on my personal policies going to AWS. It's technically doable. It cannot, yeah. It's not happening now, what we are asking. All right? So design considerations. Once you are doing this, okay, make sure that this storage system on AWS is not in your data center. Laws of physics. How fast you can move data. There are many options. This is for networking. You can get multiples of 10 gig lines if you want to pay for it. Or you can use internet, you can use many, but make sure you calculate this. Because you know your traffic. We cannot tell you which one is good, but there are many different options. Why? I have a file that is a terabyte. Does it mean I need a terabyte of storage? Usually not. You're using very creative technologies. You're using dedupe, compression, all these things. Or is the encryption happening before? Maybe you're not leveraging any of these things. Maybe a terabyte for you means like, 100 meg storage. Just know the rates. That's how you calculate things. This is how you calculate the speed. And throughput rates, it's not as same as, the access rates. High availability. You want everything to be highly available. What if that gateway fails? What if the link fails? What if my internet connectivity goes down? What will you do? These are the questions you need to answer. And we can answer together. I mean, the thing is, like, we are not solutioning now. I'm just talking about the solution options. This is very interesting. Restoring the cloud options. Don't expect everything will go like this for forever. Suddenly, some people in your organization will say, oh, I want to run my servers in the cloud. Well, that's happening. How will you use the backed up workloads that are coming from your data center in the cloud? Well, if you encrypted it, if you deduped this, you need the same gateway in the cloud so that you can pull this data set in the cloud as well. So that will be a requirement for you. And you need to consider this option as well. And the costs. Data in to AWS is free. So you don't need to think too much. Because at the end, AWS charges you for how much you store, right? It's a good deal. And data out, you pay for it. So calculate those things. And it's like, OK, we always say there's a big financial advantage. But having a financial advantage doesn't mean you don't calculate any costs. OK, make sure your use case. We sometimes give penalty for use cases where you do a lot of access. There are a lot of different considerations. And security is important. We are not saying security is not important. Encrypt your data sets. Encrypt them. There is nothing blocking you against encrypting them. Make sure you manage your keys right. And there are really great solutions for key management. OK, so usually it works like this way. I mean, the first slide was actually the similar one. You actually have your enterprise storage systems, and then you redirect your things to a gateway. It's either software, VM, or a hardware. We see a lot of appliances. It works. OK? And actually, it gets into a case like this. So you are starting to move your data sets to AWS. And I will not cover this, what's the difference between a file storage and a block storage. But imagine, I never thought I will have this conversation, but we had this conversation several times just to explain the solutions. So we are in 6 minutes time left, so I'm just expediting a little bit. So there are many, many, many different vendors. I mean, if I were you, and if I decide to use AWS, I will definitely go with the partners, because the partner solutions, AWS partners, and there are thousands of them on our website, are integrated. They already test the solution. They get full support, so it's good to work with a partner. And some examples, again, this is not, we are recommending these solutions. It's just these are partner solutions just to give you what they are doing in the space. So we discussed about Riverbed. So, basically there is a, appliance, on your data center. It presents CIFS NFS. And then, you directly move your file workloads to AWS, okay? And you can have software, usually what we do is where you run your file servers, file shares, okay? You integrate them in the backend software. There's a hardware, and it can actually do dedupe, encryption, and move the data in parallel. Moving data is a trick. Not everyone can move data really fast. The reason is our backend systems scale horizontally. There's an engineering challenge there. So make sure that you are using the optimized number of concurrent connections to push your data. Many of these vendors did this optimization. So make sure that you are leveraging their investment in the technology. And this is Panzura, just one of the things. I use Panzura for some things like, for example, this file system should be available to everyone. It's a global file system, so the file is available everywhere. So that was the one requirement. Encryption, deduplication, NFS, file locking. What if somebody updates a file in your Sydney office and another person wants to read this file in the US office? Like, how do you manage this? So you need to carry over some information. So this is one of the things that the enterprise vendors are covering. Active Directory integration, snapshots, those kind of things usually come with the enterprise solution sets. This is Riverbed. This is the solution NASDAQ uses, perfect for backup workloads. It has now Glacier integration. Basically you redirect your backup software, and it, as I said, NASDAQ just looked at their options, and they do. What our recommendations, do your own due diligence. Remember the things that we said, look at the transfer, encryption, security, availability, vendors, all your things, and then choose the solution that fits to you. But the thing is, when you are choosing, you can look at the partner solutions. This is F5, their solution, file virtualization. Actually, choose AWS as one option. There are vendors that I don't name here. Very interesting vendors actually do this thing really well, And Nasuni is another vendor. They provide everything together, like CIFS, NFS, iSCSI, all of them together. This is a very interesting solution. I really wanted to show this. What it does is it's actually in the cloud and on-premise. It does the full bare metal backups of every server they have. It has an agent. It does NAS. It does the full backup, full restore. The interesting point is especially for mid-sized companies, it keeps all your data in the cloud, and whenever you need them back, you install the agent, everything comes back. It's just one solution. And the cost number is very interesting, and it does so many different things. And moving forward, this is for massive file move. Aspera is one of the partners. When you are moving a file, moving one file from one server to another server is tough. When you are moving 100 servers, moving to 100 other servers, then you are fast. And you can script this yourself. I'm pretty sure we are hardcore, we can do this. But if you want a commercial solution, you can do, really move your files like this. And there are solutions for, the CMS management systems. There are solutions for SharePoint. There are solutions for everything. The thing is, our goal is not to tell you do this or do that. I want you to leave this session with one question in your mind. When you are buying storage for your on-premise workloads, okay, you need to consider a lot of things, and I'm pretty sure you are doing right now. What's happening is this data can be tiered down to AWS in many different ways. Again, we are at the hour mark. I will be here and outside. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer the questions. Thank you for listening.